Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to tell you a story about something that I went through as a teenager. I wanted to share this with you because it was a secret I was ashamed of for so many years. I thought it was my secret and my shame to carry around, and now I know it's not. When I started high school, it wasn't a good time for me. Boys were awful. They'd call me thunder thighs, yell at me about my weight, and so I'd get anxiety every time I saw a group of boys, especially out in public, because the stuff they said usually got a lot of laughs. So it was a huge knock to my confidence, and I stopped going out. I never did anything for 5 years. I went to school, came home, ate food, watched TV, and nothing else. I ended up getting to like 86 kgs at 15. Just before I turned 16, I lost 26 kilos. I got some confidence, started going to parties and getting a lot of attention from boys. I wasn't as mature as my peers. I'd had no experience with socializing and no sexual experience at all. I mean, we were only 16, but a lot of my friends were already doing stuff like that. I went to a party and drank way too much cheap wine, and then someone gave me a hit of weed, and because I was already drunk, I passed out on the couch in the garage. There was a guy at the party. He was older than us. We all thought he was someone's friend, but it turns out he just walked up the driveway and joined the party. I honestly don't remember that much about him because I blocked it out. I know that he had like long hair and was tied up in a ponytail. And I also remember like just thinking he was weird. I remember like looking at him and being like, ew, he's creepy. Later that night, when the party wrapped up, I was still passed out on the couch, and he must have stayed when everyone else left. I only have flashbacks of that night. I remember saying no. I remember trying to push him away. The next morning, I woke up and I was on the couch. There was a guy that I didn't know. He was lying on top of me, naked. And I knew I'd never asked him to do anything except stop. I burst into tears immediately. I didn't know who he was or why he thought it was okay to do this to me, but I remember feeling like I was responsible for what had happened. I was still in the garage where the party had taken place, and a friend of mine was sleeping in his car just outside. So I walked out. I was like shaking and I was crying hysterically. And that moment, the guy had walked out of the garage and like he wasn't even dressed yet. He was still like putting his clothes on, walking out of the garage and like trying to like make a speedy exit. And like still I hadn't like completely processed what had happened. Like I was just ashamed and I was just crying. I was looking at my friend. Anyway, my friend jumped up straight away and like ran down the driveway and was like started like pushing him, was like, what the fuck did you do to her? What did you do to her? And like even that happening didn't like process in my mind that like I wasn't at fault. Like I remember thinking there's still people inside the house and like what he was doing was gonna wake everybody up, and I didn't want people to come out and start asking questions. So I just started like saying to him like, please, crying hard out, saying, please, can you just take me home? I just want to get the fuck out of here. So he was like really worried about me. And he took me back to where I was staying. And when we got to my uncle's, I walked up the driveway and like I was literally just sobbing. I remember thinking like, my mind was completely numb, but like my body was responding to something horrific. Like my whole entire body was actually, I must have been in shock. Anyway, my uncle like ran straight over, and like because of the way that I was crying, like it was a really scary cry. I'm assuming it would have been a very scary cry to see somebody crying like that, like when somebody dies, like you know that something really bad has just happened. So he saw me, and then he saw my friend, and he like ran over to my friend to like knock him out. And my friend was like, nah man, it wasn't me. She won't tell me anything. She won't say anything. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's wrong, but I can take you back to this guy. There's this guy. And so my uncle's like, all right. So they jumped in the car and they took off. Anyway, I walked inside, still like numb, but still like crying and still shaking, just in complete shock. And I went into the shower. And I remember turning it on like as hot as it would go. And I like jumped into the shower and just crying, and then like panicking because I felt like I couldn't get clean. I felt like I could still smell him, which was really disgusting. It was making me feel really dirty. I stayed in there for a while, and I knew that no one could ever know what had happened. Like, that's just what I knew in my mind. I was like, no one can ever know about this. No one is. I didn't understand what had happened. I just thought it was my fault. So basically the rest of my life, I just convinced them that nothing happened. The next day, my friend who had helped me was waiting for me at the school gates. And he was like really anxious, I remember that. And he like wanted to make sure that I was okay, and obviously wanted some answers. But the last thing I wanted to do was open up that wound and talk about what had happened. So I just told him, I'm okay man, just leave it alone, I'm all good, I was just wasted. For 15 years, I never said a word about it. I never told anyone, I just kept it moving. One day my auntie asked me why I get anxious drinking around strangers. And I told her, I think it's because of this situation. When I told her about it, she asked me directly, did he rape you? Straight away I said, nah. But then after hanging up, I started to really review the night. Like when she actually asked me that question, obviously it like kind of like was that weird thing. It was like a door had opened, and all of a sudden it was like you have to answer yourself this question. You don't necessarily need to tell anyone else, but you need to answer this question for yourself. And once I started to really review the night and the next morning, I started to obviously ask myself some questions, and then I came to the realization that yeah, I was. That night I was. And that was really hard for me to process. Obviously it's going to be fucking hard for anyone to process, but it was like it had just happened. It was like all of a sudden all of these things in my life, all of these moments where I felt unsafe or whatever, started to make sense. And I was like, oh God, this really happened. Like, and I've been living with this on my own. I locked myself in this room by myself to deal with this for all this time. And it was like I finally opened up the door and had the tools to walk out. So that was when I started to see a psychiatrist. That was when I was like, all right, cool. Like I need to talk to somebody about this. This is something that I really need to do. So after doing my best to process what had happened, I ended up getting in contact with my friend that helped me that day, because I realized that while blocking out the extreme trauma that I'd faced, I'd never acknowledged this person who tried to help me. I sent him a message thanking him for what he had done for me, I couldn't imagine waking up in that state to someone who didn't care or gossiped about me afterwards, and he never said a word. I honestly feel really lucky that he was there. Obviously, it was a really fucked up situation, but I'm grateful that it was him that was there to help me. For years, I walked around with shame and fear. I've felt like people wouldn't believe me or they'd make it my fault, but that doesn't matter. All that matters is I understand what happened and I know that it wasn't my fault. I drank too much, I made some poor choices, but I know that other people have made those same decisions, and the worst thing that happened to them was they woke up with a hangover. I know that this trauma has played a massive role in me believing I wasn't as good as other people, that it made me less desirable or deserving of love. I know now that that's not true. And I also know that secrets like this, the shame associated with what happened, isn't mine. It's not something I need to be ashamed of or keep secret. Since this happened, I get severe anxiety every time I go out and there are men that I don't know drinking. I have to constantly tell myself, you're okay, you're safe, which can get really isolating because most people look at me and they think, oh, I'm so strong or I'm tough, but really inside I feel super fragile. I still go out though. And guess what? For the most part, I have a good time. Once I get my nerves and my anxiety under control, I have a great time. I never get so fucked up I don't know what I'm doing or what's happening. And I always make sure I keep my drinks on me because my safety is my priority and my power, but it's not my prison. I don't want to be a person who allows fear to take hold of their life. Like, I'm not doing that. Thanks so much for listening to my story. I hope it gives you a better understanding of me and what I have survived. If you or anyone you know has gone through an experience like this, know it's not shameful to speak up. You don't have to live in silence. And please don't live your life in fear.